you can actually hear the voice of God. The problem is that some of us, we don't always want to listen to what God has to say. We don't always take heed to his instruction. We always say that we want to pray for a sign, pray for this and that, when it could be right in front of us, or it could require for us to let go of certain things that may be keeping us, it might require us to let go of things that are hindering us. So we have to make sure that we understand and we see and acknowledge all the signs that are in front of us, because a lot of times God does communicate with us. He does show us signs, but we just don't pay attention to it, or we don't agree with it, or our flesh is unable to compromise with that change that needs to be made. But I'm going to tell you right now that in the times that we're living in right now, we don't have time to be stagnated. We don't have time to be stuck and to be, questioning wisdom. When wisdom is presented in front of you and when you know it is the truth, we have to move accordingly. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind in this craziness that is happening right now. Right now, it is the time to make sure that you're ready for what's going to happen, whatever that is in your life. Because as you can see, there's a lot of things going on in the divided states. And only those that can truly hear the voice of God is good. Only those people are going to be saved. Because why? Because they take heed to divine wisdom. They understand divine timing, and they use that time wisely to sharpen themselves mentally, spiritually, and also gaining strength, not only physically, but also mental fortitude, and sharpening your faith and increasing your faith as well. So there's so many things to prepare for at this time, so you have to be ready for any kind of storm, any kind of situation that may hit your way. But just like how people that are very in tune with nature are able to predict the weather, or at least they can sense when rain or when a storm is coming. A lot of times all you have to do is pay attention to the animals. Pay attention to how the animals are reacting, and also in the direction in which the birds are flying. That will let you know what type of weather your area is going to have, because the animals pay attention to the frequencies in the atmosphere. So they move accordingly. They're more in tune with nature than we are nowadays, because most people today in this modern society are very disconnected from nature. So they don't know. And especially when you have a phone in your hand 24 hours, 24/7, all day, people have lost their ability to connect with the earth. And that is going to be the downfall of many, because they are not going to be able to see the signs, even if it is standing right in front of them. And with all these distractions going on, it's becoming increasingly difficult for, to really get to people. People awaken in their own time, but, we're here to support each other and to spread the insight. A lot of people want to know solutions. They want to know how do you get solutions? Well, here's the thing. Life is going to throw so many different curveballs that there is not just one set solution for every problem. Every problem is going to require you to think critically, to analyze the situation, and for you to come up with a solution that's for that specific problem, So that's what makes life, at times, it could be hard to navigate, because now you're going to encounter a different problem that you never seen before. And so, again, the solution to this is exercising our minds. You have to know how to think critically. You have got to become sharper mentally, increase mental fortitude, grow spiritually, have a very strong connection to God. That's the most important, really. And then also, I would, definitely recommend that we keep ourselves healthy, keep your body strong, and your cardio you have to have some good cardio, because you never know when you might have to go for a sprint or go run for your life. God forbid, hopefully you don't have to do that, but I'm just saying that you don't want to be out of shape, especially with whatever may happen, and just in general, you want to always be ready for anything. You know, you don't want to just be slacking. You don't want to be caught lacking when things go crazy, you know? So when you dedicate time to improving yourself in all areas of life, not just the finances, because I noticed that in the Matrix, they distract us by putting all this money in our face, by putting all this material, all this consumerism to make us believe that we have to strive to be able to buy all of this stuff, when really that we end up wasting all of our time punching a clock just so that you could have enough money to get to buy things that you don't even have time to enjoy anyway. So remember to use your time wisely, and don't fall for that trap of, oh, you have to have all these things, you have to have all these materialistic things. What you need to have is, you need to make sure that you pour into yourself mentally, spiritually, and physically, as far as like fitness and stuff like that, health and fitness. Those are things that you should invest into. Man, all that stuff about, oh, having an expensive car, expensive clothes, that stuff does not fucking matter, because when society collapses, that stuff is not gonna save you. That Mercedes, well, unless you have a Mercedes Sprinter van, that might actually help. But you get the point. There's certain, the things that you spend money on, think about it. Ask yourself, is this going to serve me when shit hits the fan? Is this going to actually help me? Is this going to allow me to survive? You want to be mindful of how much money you're investing into things that really are not even necessary. And also, like I said, one of the most important things for you to invest in, it's going to be your mind and your spirit. Two of the most important things. What makes it so important? You need your mental faculties, for one, and two, you need to be able to problem solve, think critically. You need to be able to know how to survive in the wilderness if you need to. Now, there's people that they don't really have that type of experience, and they don't really hear from God because they're not really trying to listen to divine wisdom, because divine wisdom goes against the flesh. Divine wisdom goes against what your carnal mind desires, because you've lived for so long. This matrix has programmed you to only want to satisfy carnal desires, which in turn ends up weakening your spirit. Your spirit is becoming weaker and weaker the more you succumb to the so-called pleasures of the world, which really isn't really that pleasing, because once you get to a high vibration, the pleasures of the flesh won't really be as pleasurable as you thought it was, because now when you have a high vibration, there's going to be new things that pique your interest. You notice that your taste in men or women, it changes when you have a high vibration. You're looking for something better. You're looking for the kingdom spouse. You're looking to build a kingdom, as opposed to when you're at a low vibration, you're not even thinking like. When you're at a low vibration, you're just operating off of primal instinct, like no different than an animal. Seriously. And unfortunately, this matrix has accomplished in turning people into pretty no different than an animal that operates off of pure instinct, primal instinct, and not intellect. You see, one of the biggest things that separates us from animals is the fact that we actually have intellect. We have the ability to have intellectual and spiritual conversations and stuff like that. Our brains are more complex than that of the animal. But unfortunately, the matrix has programmed people to operate like cattle, basically. And most people, or sheep, basically, cattle, sheep to be specific, because people follow any stupidity that is trending. They don't think for themselves. Ever since I prayed for wisdom when I was 14, I was up against a lot of things, and so I knew I needed it. And guess what? Yeah, I could pray for wisdom all day, but if I would have never took heed to all the times that God has warned me about certain people, God has warned me about certain individuals that I came in contact with, letting me know, hey, who has the darkness? You know what I mean? who you need to stay away from. It doesn't matter how you feel. It doesn't matter what you think. You have to listen to divine wisdom when it comes to you in the form of a divine dream. How do we know the difference between a divine dream and a deceptive dream? The divine dream aligns with truth, and you will see it come into fruition when you wake up, right? Because not only does God show me in the dream, right? But when you wake up, God will show you in person, in your face, when that person, right? Let's say that person is toxic. Yeah, he's going to show you how much this person is a liar, how much they have they have a double life, or how disrespectful they are, or the fact that, whatever the case is. There's so many different examples. I can go on, but that's just to name a few. God will reveal things to you without you having to go through, the hell that some of these people could have put you through. When you listen to divine wisdom and you don't allow your carnal desire to take over, you are going to be operating in a much better way. Because a lot of times the reasons why we fall into these pitfalls is because we're operating off of carnal desire, off of temptation, to the point that you become more susceptible to the temptation, to the seduction. Oh, it feels so good. Oh, this person makes me feel good. Okay, but what do you know about this person? Can we check the Carfax on this person, right? The psych facts. Make sure they're not a psycho. Make sure they don't have an agenda against you. There's so many things that people don't even know about the person that they're dealing with, man. That's not good, because there's a lot of craziness happening in the world. Too much has happened for us to not have this level of awareness. Well, one of the biggest reasons is sometimes people, they don't pay attention to the signs when it's in front of them. And I'm telling you right now, if you had a dream warning you about someone or something or someplace to not go, to not engage in, and then you wake up and then you see it manifest, you see a sign manifest, you know what I mean? That's like the last resort. That's like, okay, all right, like God showed you the dream, the warning. Now you're seeing that you wake up, now you're seeing something that's showing you, that serves as confirmation that the dream aligns with the reality. It aligns with truth, but it's giving you a last warning like, hey, this is real. So you either gonna take heed to the wisdom, or you're just gonna continue to allow your flesh to control you, to where now you're just gonna go, right? And then you end up in a pitfall. You end up falling down pretty bad. You have to pay attention to those signs. And even if you feel like God is not being clear with you, you have to also take a moment to reflect and see, maybe the reason why you're not hearing from God as clearly is because you're not really in tune with that frequency where the divine messages could come through. What type of lifestyle are you living at the time? Have you fallen back into old patterns? Are you entertaining bad company in your life? Did you go back to the person that hurt you? Are you in a low vibrational place, or have you become a low vibrational person yourself because maybe something happened and you went back to your old ways? So we have to make sure that we are honest with ourselves and we tell ourselves, okay, how did I get to this point? And so that way we can become more in tune with receiving this information, because honestly, it's possible to do so. The problem is that a lot of people are disconnected from the earth, and so they're disconnected from God, making them disconnected from actually hearing the voice of God. And then a lot of times it's really messed up to find yourself in a position where you're at a low vibration and your faith is lukewarm, to where now the voice of God is so faint that it's hard for you to hear it, making it easy for deceptive spirits to come infiltrate into your life and tell you where to go. And as you know, that's not the type of guidance that you want. You don't want the guidance from familiar spirits. There's a difference between a familiar spirit leading you astray, leading you to confusion. There's a difference between that and actual divine messages. And you will know the difference because, like I said, when you have spent years dedicating your life to God, when you decide to do that, when you are very, very serious about your walk with God, when you grow spiritually, when you heal your wounds gradually, when you're making progress like this, when you're implementing fasting, that's important too. All these things, right, put together. And also obeying divine wisdom, that's important. You put all that together, and then you get all this knowledge and wisdom from all these things, right? That right there is gonna put you in a position where you can clearly hear the voice of God, which is the divine messages, the wisdom that comes to you, the downloads, the intuition, to where you can read a person just like that, quick. You don't have to waste your time. You don't have to get hurt again and again and again and again to realize what the hell is going on around you, because all it is patterns. Everything is patterns. And when you can see and detect patterns quickly, which means you have a high IQ, you are going to be able to escape the pitfalls of life. You're going to be able to outsmart, the gang stalkers as well. You're going to be able to do all of these things, And the more we learn, the more we share, the better we are able to help, our spiritual brethren. Take this time to learn as much as you can, regardless of your age. It doesn't matter. Don't feel bad about it. Because at the end of the day, that's what life is about. It's about learning different things and how to increase in abundance mentally and spiritually. Everybody's talking about money. And although it is good to have, the finances to help you, of course you need that. But at the same time, the emphasis should really be on the mental and spiritual aspect of our lives, because essentially, how can you maintain your finances if your mind and spirit is not right? Without wisdom, how can you manage those things? You have people that have all this money, but they do stupid shit with it. So what is the point? So we have to make sure. And also another thing to consider is that when society collapses, right? What is that money going to do for you at that point? Nothing. Because now the divided states would just not, It would not be, So keep in mind, think about how our ancestors used to live off the land. That lifestyle is what allowed people to survive. A lot of people survived for a long time living that simple lifestyle, but it's very, very important to understand these skills and to understand how to live in a natural environment like our ancestors did, because you never know. It might come a time when you're going to have to start a fire. You're going to have to learn how to build your own shelter with your own hands, knowing how to find food, how to fish and hunt and all these different things. These skills that most people in modern society do not know. Do you know how many people sit in a desk and they don't know none of this stuff? These are survival skills, and most people have no concept of it whatsoever, because you never know. You might think, well, what if I never need to use these skills? You might not. You might not have to use that, right? Because it's primitive, right? Or maybe you might think about leaving the country to live somewhere else. You might want to live overseas, whatever the case is. I think it's still helpful to know those basic survival skills. Is important for you to know that, because you never know when you might need to know. Now, that's also me, because when I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of the survival shows and people stranded on the island and how they survived that. I was so into that because I wanted to know, I don't know, what if I was in an island? What would I do? See, I always put myself in hypothetical scenarios because I'm preparing my mind for anything that may happen. And it could also be, I also think that it might be just, it could also be maybe it's past life memory or something like that. Maybe in a past life, I know definitely my ancestors lived in the wilderness, so I'm not too far from that, too far from wanting to know and really reconnect with that and not lose it, because it's important to know that, because you have people out here that they work in an office, but they don't understand the reason why you should not drink ocean water, which is pretty scary, because it's like, or the fact that some people, they don't really know that thing. To me, that's very basic. Like, you cannot drink ocean water because obviously it has salt and it can actually end up dehydrating you, and you could actually die from dehydration. But some people don't understand that yet. Those same people that don't understand that simple concept, those same people, they'll be making all this money. They make six figures. They work at an office and they don't even understand basic survival skills. So keep that in mind. Don't allow anybody to make you feel like you're less than because your income is not up there. Your salary is not as high. Because at the end of the day, when society collapses, who's really going to be the one with the power and resources? It's going to be the people that know how to get it from the earth. It's going to be the people that know how to live off the land. Those are going to be the ones that people are going to look up to now. The same people that look down on you because they have a higher salary. They work a fancy job. They wear nice clothes. They don't know shit about how to live off the land. So now they're going to look at the people that they used to look down on for that kind of help. And they're not going to try to help you. They're going to want you to do it for them. The audacity, right? But then you will have the power because you have the knowledge of the earth. Whenever you feel like your wounds are calling when you feel like your wounds are calling you to go out of character or to go back to old ways, you have to really exercise militant discipline, and you have to replace that longing with something else, something that's actually healthy for you. And that is why working out is probably the best thing to do. Go for a jog, play some loud music as you do it. Really put yourself in that meditative state, and you have to make sure that you maintain control of your mind, control of your spirit, and understand that whatever you're feeling at that moment, and whatever negativity or whatever urges try to kick into you to go back to old patterns that were toxic, you have to make sure that you deprive that demon of that. You know what I mean? And that is why fasting is so powerful, because you are literally teaching your mind that you're the one in control. You teach your body that you're in control, and everything starts in the mind, and you dictate what you need to do. You do not allow these strange spirits to influence your mind. See, when you live in the flesh, you open yourself up to possession. You open yourself up to being easily influenced and deceived by seducing spirits. Well, because it feels good, right? Because it feels like it's just because something feels good doesn't mean it's actually good for you. Because in the long run, that thing that you think feels good could actually end up becoming your demise. So we have to be very careful with these things, and we have to really increase in wisdom, especially right now. We cannot be fucking around right now. Seriously. You know what I mean? You cannot be, this is not the time to not be aware. It's not the time to be slipping, because that could be the end, And also, you have people that count on you, especially. You're supposed to be a leader, right? So if you have people that count on you, you have got to make sure that you are as strong as you can be, And it all starts in the mind. So build your strength mentally and spiritually, and then the physical will follow. Because the physical, right, the body is controlled by whatever is in your mind, and it is influenced by whatever comes to your spirit. And we have to make sure that we maintain spiritual sovereignty and block out any demonic forces that try to infiltrate into our temple. Our temple is going to remain solid. It's going to remain clean through the journey. And although they're going to keep attacking, the attacks are not going to stop. But what's going to change is the strength of our spirit and our ability to block out those attacks. But that comes with that comes with obedience to divine wisdom, as well as, having that close relationship with God. But you could sit there and say that you're close to God, but if you don't obey divine wisdom, you're going to get burned through the process, and that could be very painful and detrimental to your ability to strengthen your temple. You know, your temple is your body. You know, the more you grow spiritually, the more powerful you're going to be, right? Because now the discipline takes over. You have control of your mind, and you at that point you're going to operate off of a high frequency, which means that it's going to be hard for deceiving spirits to come and infiltrate. They're going to try to, they might try to be clever with it, but essentially what's really important is being able to hear the voice of God and being able to have the discernment to know what voice is coming from God and what's coming from the deceptive spirits. So and in order to do that, you have got to be vigilant. You have got to be sharp, you know, and even if you feel like you're not there yet, if you feel like you have a lot of work to do, that's okay. At least you acknowledge the fact that there's things that you have to work on, and that's okay because you have that time now. There's still enough time for you to cultivate whatever skills you need to learn. But always think about this. Don't stress so much about the money. What you need to be focusing on is really building your mind, you know, becoming more aware of things, becoming more knowledgeable, and having wisdom and having spiritual strength. You know, those are important things right now. And also, if you have these things already, we have to constantly sharpen it and become better at it and help each other understand all of these things and how it all comes together, right? So that's what we do. That's what is the priority right now. So, you know, there's nothing to worry. There's nothing to fear because wisdom eradicates fear. And so that's all I had to say. I said a lot here. I thank you so much for listening. I appreciate every last one of you. Thank you, and until next time.